We can jump right into it. Like you said, we're going to just kind of walk you guys through what it looks like to shift some unconscious belief patterns. We're going to show you how to identify the unconscious belief patterns and then tools for reframing those beliefs as you go forward. So I think we can just jump right into that.
All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to Great Life, Greater Impact. I hope you're having an amazing morning. I'm so excited to talk about this topic. We've done this topic before. And so if you'd like to go back and watch episode 1, it was almost a year ago that Jessica and I did a class together. Jessica is my daughter. She's my oldest daughter, and she's a health coach. She's a healer. She does a lot of different healing modalities, but she also is really good at working with beliefs and emotions and helping people work their way through that so that they can access a higher, more vibrant version of themselves that's less stuck. And that's what all of us want. So before we get into that, hi, I'm Janet. I'm a quantum healing practitioner and a soul self-restoration coach. And what I do is something similar is I help take people to the uncharted waters of who they really are for healing, for transformation, and for spiritual awakening and spiritual growth. Last year, in our episodes that we did on spiritual sovereignty, we talked all about identity, our spiritual identity, and how to stand in your own sovereignty and how to stand as a resolute, confident, courageous being, and how to get access to your own inner voice. And this year is more, we've been focusing a little bit more on divine identity. And I find that having these tools to help us do our inner work is really, really helpful. So today, what we're going to focus on as Jessica walks us through some learning, she's got a presentation that she's going to do for us. But today I thought we would talk about unraveling subconscious beliefs that are holding you back and keeping you stuck. And I'm going to turn the time over to you, Jessica. In just a few minutes, I'll pin you to the screen so that we can both have conversation back and forth together. Just be aware, you may want to grab a pencil and a paper. And also for those who are willing to be bold and brave, if you wouldn't mind being a guinea pig, there may be time at some point in the presentation to just do some inner work together and model some of the things that you guys are going to learn today. So we're going to unravel subconscious beliefs that are holding you back and keeping you stuck. And then also just a reminder today, I also go live an hour after this free class over on my website, greatlifegreaterimpact.com. And we do live group healing sessions over there. Today, we're going to be working with allergies. And at the root of every single allergy that I've ever worked with is always some kind of subconscious belief or a trapped emotion that's trying to get your attention. And so your body will create these triggers. So that's what we're going to work on today is allergies. If that applies to you, go over to my website, get yourself registered. All right, Jessica, I'm going to bring you on. Let me see if we can add you to the screen. There you are. Hello, hello.
Hi.
I'm so sorry that you've been having technical problems with your computer, but I think we're going to make this work.
No worries.
Okay.
Do you want to try and share the screen?
Yeah. Do you want me to start that right now?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
like my mom said, I would recommend pen and paper if you have it. There's going to be a little bit of self-reflecting moments in here. So yeah, we'll just dive right in.
Okay. Hey, would you be willing to just do a quick little introduction as to how did you get on this path of doing this work, helping people do their inner work?
Oh, that is a long roundabout story for how I got here. But I started doing massage therapy. And so I was doing a lot of body work with people. And when you're doing body physical work, so much emotion and subconscious belief is tied up in that. And I was noticing how much of that was coming out with people as I was working on their physical body. And I got interested in wanting to learn how to help people shift the unconscious patterns that were coming up through their physical manifestations and be able to do the two together. So from there, I kind of shifted over into learning about belief coaching and life coaching. And now I kind of do a little bit of a combination of the two together. I do physical body work with a combination of emotional belief coaching as well. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, and I can testify that that's a really powerful experience to go through when you are experiencing the release or the shift or the reconnection to your higher self or your inner self along with body work. It's so powerful, and I highly recommend it. All right, I'm going to screen share.
So to get started, we're going to talk about emotional resilience first and what that is, what it looks like, and how it relates to our belief patterns, the beliefs that we hold. So, emotional resilience is simply just the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility. You can go to the next slide, Mom. So in other words, you can click next, sorry. In other words, it's basically your ability to adapt to life's difficulties, either mentally or emotionally. And that is really important because we live in this society where life is just hard. I think we can kind of agree that life is so hard, and without the right tools to take on the challenges that come our way, especially in the mental and emotional plane, we feel a little bit vulnerable to everything around us. If we don't have those tools, it puts us in a very vulnerable position. It takes us out of our place of power, our ability to feel like we have any sense of control over anything. So, learning to build up this emotional resilience and learning tools to better do that is going to bring you back into a place of power in your life. It's going to bring you back into a place of feeling like I have a sense of control over what happens in my life when there's so much in my life that is uncontrollable. So one way that can show up for us, you can go to the next slide, is in negative feedback loops. I'm just going to throw a question out to you guys. Have you ever had a negative thought? And if so, have you ever had more than one in a day? And have you ever had more than one in an hour? And has it ever repeated itself on a continuous loop? Because I know that I have definitely had those negative feedback loops happen. You know, you get one specific thought that you get stuck on, and it tends to replay itself over and over. And then it kind of just descends into this downward spiral of like, okay, I'm in this negative thought pattern, and now I feel bad. And now life is just miserable because of this one thought that keeps repeating over and over and over. And sometimes those thoughts can feel impossible to combat. So here's a situation I kind of want to walk you through. So you can go ahead and click next, Mom. I want you to think of a common negative loop that you have. So either a thought or just a pattern maybe that is showing up in your life that is holding you back from something. And I want you to ask yourself the following questions. How does this loop affect my sense of emotional stability or safety? How often do these thoughts happen? And is this loop interfering with my ability to function? So I want to give you guys just a minute or two to think about that. Think of a situation or a thought or a belief and consider those thoughts.
You know, Jessica,
Yeah.
I've noticed in my life that these negative feedback loops often come up in relationships where if a conversation happens or something happens, and I get triggered, and I go down, this is usually where it happens for me. So maybe this can help those of you guys out there. who are trying to think of some of these negative feedback loops?
That's such a good point. I think relationships in general just have they can be really triggering. They are great tools for showing us where we have triggers for sure. So if you don't even know where to start, sometimes like we know we have things that are holding us back, but we don't really know where to start in like looking for those or diving into those. That's a great place. If you're being triggered by someone in your life in any kind of relationship, that's a great place to start looking at, why am I being triggered by this? What's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
We'll dive into these loops in just a second, a little bit more in detail. But I did just want to make note that we all criticize ourselves or have self-defeating thoughts from time to time. It's very normal human behavior to have thoughts that are negative, right? That are out of the normal, that tear us down from time to time or put us in a bad space. Those thoughts aren't inherently bad. Um, Sometimes thoughts can just show us where we have potential for growth. And it's good to self-evaluate. It's good to look at where we can change behavior and pattern in our lives. So they are opportunities for us to grow. However, when these self-criticisms and when these self-judgments start to go unchecked and when they start to go unfiltered, like we're not stopping them at all, we're just letting them run wild and free in our minds. Those can become a hindrance to our personal growth, and they can affect our relationships with ourselves. They affect our ability to have self-love, and then they can affect our relationships with other people. So it's important when we notice these patterns, these negative loops happening, that we check them, that we check in with them and say, okay, what's going on here? How can I change this, rather than just letting these negative thoughts run my life? All right, let's go on to the next. You can keep going to the next slide. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to jump into the belief cycle. If you were on the class that I did the first time with Janet, we did talk about this belief cycle before, but we're gonna come back to it because I think it's a useful tool when we are evaluating these thought patterns and how we can change them. So self-evaluation, kind of like I said, it is a key component for personal growth. So in order to effectively change your behaviors, we first have to understand what's influencing our behaviors. If we're wanting to change our thoughts, hold on, Mom, before you go any further on that. If we're wanting to change how we're thinking and how we're feeling, we have to understand what is influencing those thoughts and feelings. So in the belief cycle, we usually start with some sort of experience. Go ahead. So you have an experience, and that experience usually will create some sort of belief in your life. So you experience something, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, the world is this way because this happened when I went through this experience, or this happened to me, so now I believe this and this and this. Usually what happens when you have a belief is you start to think about that belief. So belief becomes thought. It perpetuates the things that you think about. It perpetuates the way you think about yourself. It perpetuates the way you think about other people, perpetuates the way you think about the world. And when you think a thought over and over and over, what usually happens at that point is you start to have a physical reaction to that thought. And that physical reaction is what we call a feeling. So you have a lot of thoughts, and those thoughts suddenly create feeling in your body. So then what happens when you have feelings that are perpetuating over and over and over? So if you're having feelings that are happening time and again, they usually lead us to action. They lead us to do something. So feeling then becomes behavior. And then when you have a behavior that repeats itself over and over and over again, that becomes a habit. So then to complete this cycle, your habits that you do time and time and time again, those habits create the experience that you are currently having. So now you've just created this whole cycle where your belief that you started with creates the experience that you have, and the experience that you have then confirms what you believe, because what you are experiencing confirms the belief that you have. So you kind of get stuck in this cycle. If it's a negative feedback loop, you can get stuck in this cycle of like, well, I believe this, therefore I'm experiencing this, and I'm experiencing this, so what I believe must be true because my experience is confirming it. Does that make sense? Is that making sense to you guys out there? Is there any questions on that level of it right now?
It
Okay.
totally makes sense to me. I'm sorry. And if you guys have
No,
comments,
you're good.
please go ahead and jump in. But it makes sense to me because we know from a quantum perspective that we create things that unfold in our lives based on the frequency that we're vibrating at. And all of these things, thoughts and beliefs and feelings, those things are vibrational frequency. They're electromagnetic. And so it does make sense that you can easily get trapped in a feedback loop such as this, depending on what the subconscious belief is. And sometimes we don't even know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm
Can
glad
I
you brought
ask?
that up because yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kate.
Hey, I see this all the time, and as people are coming into the awareness that the medical system has duped them a lot of times. And I'm also a hands-on body worker too, and I have more and more clients that are coming trying to get off pain meds, and this belief cycle is such a good example of the pain cycle too that they
Yeah.
are stuck in because they want so badly to get off these medications, these opiates and stuff like that, but it has become this whole process of working through of um of, of the behavior, the feeling, the experience. It's this is a great way, and I thank you for this because leads me an easier way to explain to my clients how
Right.
to break free from that. Thank you.
Right. No, I love that. That's a great example, right? That's a great example of an external experience that they're having because of internal thought patterns, right? An internal process. And so you can see that like our inner experience or our outer experience is really just a reflection of what's going on internally. And so when you want to change the outer experience that you're having, we have to look internal. We have to look at what am I doing in my own sphere of control, right? My own sphere of control is what I can do internally. What can I do in my own sphere of control that can change my outer experience? So let's go to the next slide. All right. So in order to have a change with your experience, it has to start at the level of your belief. So go ahead and hit the next, Mom. So again, I'm just going to reiterate the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, the beliefs that we hold about other people, and the beliefs that we hold about just like the world in general. They influence how we think, it influences how we feel, and it influences how we act. You can hit next. That's just another way of looking at it. So beliefs become thoughts, which become feelings, which become behaviors and habits. I just wanted to make note that identifying the experience that starts the belief, because all belief usually starts with some experience first. Identifying the experience, it can be beneficial in your healing journey and in the healing process. But sometimes when you are trying to change the pattern, it can become a distraction when you focus solely on the experience. So don't get stuck in the experience itself because you can't do anything to change an experience that has already happened. Instead, again, what we want to focus on is what we do have control over, which is those internal processes. So what we believe, we can control what we believe. We can control what we think. We can control our feelings and we can control our habits. Those things might have been formed because of a specific experience that we don't have any control over, but we do control what we choose to believe. We do control what we choose to think and feel. So we want to focus on those things that we have a direct influence over, which then influences what we experience moving forward.
I love that, Jessica. I'm just going to insert really
Yeah,
quick. I hope it's
of
okay. But
course.
one of the things that came out last time you came on, we talked about you might not be to blame for the traumas or the dramas or the really traumatic experiences that you may have been through that caused an unhealthy belief about yourself. you might not be to blame for that, but you are responsible for what you do with it moving forward, and how you choose to maintain that inner environment inside of you.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think we never want to downplay anyone's experiences because they're they're their experiences and they happen to them, and they can be painful, they can be emotional. So we never want to downplay an experience. But like you said, at the end of the day, we if we give so much power to the experience over how it's still affecting us, like we have the responsibility of healing from those experiences. We have the responsibility of what we do with those experiences as we move forward. Are we going to give that experience power over us for the rest of our lives to continue to harm us and continue to perpetuate that cycle? Or are we going to take control back? And are we going to choose a different pattern? Are we going to choose to do something about that cycle and about that pattern and grow from it and learn from it and do something different with it? Okay. So now that we've identified what the negative feedback loop is, and we've identified where in the belief cycle, actually, let's go back to the belief cycle really fast. I just want to show you how we can utilize this as we're trying to identify. So if we go back to the belief cycle, so let's say you don't know the belief, because I think a lot of times we don't know at the root what's causing our patterns or our habits or our feelings or our thoughts. It can be hard to kind of get down to the root of that. And that's okay. If you're not there yet, start with what you do know. Start with what you recognize. So if all you're recognizing right now is a habit that you have, a bad habit, start there and trace it backwards through that cycle until you can get it to the root of the belief. So let's say we have a habit of, well, I'll start with one of mine. I have a habit of like emotional eating, right? When I get stressed, I turn to food and I use food as a coping mechanism at times. So if I'm not sure what's at the root of that, what the belief is that's perpetuating that, then I need to analyze the behavior of it. And if I recognize the behavior, then I can analyze the feeling of it. Okay, so let's say I'm feeling empty in my body, or I'm feeling anxious and I feel like I'm not being fulfilled by something. So I'm filling my body with food that makes it feel good, right? Okay, so now I know the feeling. What thoughts are perpetuating the feeling of feeling empty inside? Okay, well, maybe I'm feeling disconnected from someone in my life. I'm feeling a little lonely, or I'm feeling like I'm not connecting where I want to be with people I want to be connecting with. And that's perpetuating a feeling of emptiness. And now I'm feeding that emptiness with a habit, right? So now we trace that thought back, now that we've identified the thought, back to a belief. Okay, why do I believe that I'm not connecting with this person, right? I believe I'm not connecting with this person because of whatever it is. So you can kind of trace your way back through that cycle until you get to the belief, and pinpoint exactly what it is that's perpetuating the thoughts, what it is that's perpetuating the feelings that are perpetuating the habits. So if you're not
Jessica,
sure where to start there. Yeah.
one thing that you did to help me with this that I thought was really, really a great way to ask yourself questions was you asked me, I can't remember what I was going through. It was a long time ago, but you were like, why is that important to you? And so I'd
Mm-hmm.
answer the question and then you'd say, well, why is that important to you? And I'd answer, and why is that important? And it got all the way down. It didn't take very long, but it got all the way down to, I don't feel like I'm enough.
Yeah.
And so that was a really great way to just ask the questions, to take myself down the rabbit hole to get to that actual belief.
Yeah, in psychology, I think they call it like the rule of seven. If you ask yourself why 7 times, you will get to the root of what lies at under the surface of it all. So
Mhm.
that is a really great tool for if you're not, again, if you're not sure what's lying at the surface, just keep asking yourself that question, why? Okay, why do I feel this way? Okay, and what's important about that? And why do I think that? And what's important about that? And why do I think that? And just keep kind of following that vein until you feel like you can get down to the root of like, this is what it is. This is what's perpetuating it. And then we can address it from there. We can address it from that root level.
Yeah.
That's great. So now that we've identified how to recognize the pattern, how to recognize how to find that belief, I want to walk you through how we can interrupt the pattern a little bit and start to reframe those beliefs. Because I don't want you to feel stuck. Like, okay, I know how to identify the problem. What do I do about that now? So let's kind of walk through what we can do about changing that belief pattern. So let's go to a couple slides forward. We're going to go to the interrupting the pattern slide. Perfect, right there. So the first step in all of this is what we just did. We recognize the thought loop and we identify the belief that needs to change. That's what we just did, right? We noticed the loop that was happening. We identified the belief based off of that belief cycle, and we traced it back until we found what was missing. So the next thing you want to do now that you've done that is you want to identify what need is not being met in your life because of that belief or because of an experience that you had. This is where the experience can play a vital role in this process. Usually when you had an experience that created some sort of negative unconscious belief, there was an emotional need that did not get met in your life. And in life, we have pretty much 3 basic emotional needs, and those are love, safety, and belonging. So you can take yourself back to that experience that originally created the belief, and you can ask yourself, okay, what need in that moment was not getting met in my life? And is the cycle that I'm currently in, is it balanced at all times? So oftentimes the beliefs that we form about ourselves or about the world, it can be because we're lacking one of these areas, and our beliefs are trying to support that experience. It's trying to support the experience that I don't have love in my life, so I'm going to create a reality where I don't have love in my life, right? So that's kind of the next step in that. So we identify the belief, we identify what need is not being met, and we identify the loop itself. So the next step 2, is to get curious. This is kind of what we were just talking about. Now that we know what is causing it, we want to get curious about it. We want to start asking some questions about why it's there. Now, I just want to preface this. When you're in the curiosity stage of the cycle, it is so crucial to try to stay in a place of neutrality with this. We don't need to be self-critical. We don't need to be judgmental of ourselves. Having self-defeating thoughts, and as we're asking ourselves questions about why we believe these things, doesn't serve us. So as much as you can, try to approach this from a place of love and grace and just curiosity, right? As if you're looking at yourself from a third party perspective and you're just like, I wonder why I am that way. I wonder why I believe that. So one thing you can do if you're not sure what questions to ask, start with the basics, the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. Who told me that? What experience did I have that created this belief? When did this happen? Where did this happen? Why did this happen? How did this happen? And just start using those kinds of questions. You can also use statements like, that's interesting that I think that I am not safe in this situation. I wonder why I feel that way. Or I wonder what need is not being met that is currently influencing this thought. So we're going to get curious. On the next slide, here's some more just examples of questions you can ask yourself when you're trying to get curious. So the first one is, who told me that? Considering all the evidence, is the thought that I'm having 100% accurate? What is the positive intention of this thought, or what is it keeping me safe from? Because usually, like I said, these thoughts, they're trying to compensate for a need that's not being met. So it's trying to keep us safe from something. It's perpetuating a cycle where I wasn't safe at one point, so now I've created a habit that is trying to keep me safe from a bad experience that I once had before so that it doesn't happen again. So what's the positive intention And what would I rather be experiencing instead? You can ask yourself, when did I choose to start believing this about myself? And I think the keyword there is choose. We want to take back our own power in this and our own choice in our experiences, right? Why do I believe that? How does this thought or belief serve me? How do I feel when I have this thought? How can I better support my needs myself? I think that's a really important key note as well, is it's our job at the end of the day to make sure our needs are being met, our emotional needs are being met. It's really no one else's job to do that. Other people in our life can fill those needs, and that's not bad, but it's not their responsibility to make sure that they are being met. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are finding ways to meet those needs in healthy ways in our own life. So we can't project that onto other people or put that onto other people when we recognize that a need is not being met. Like if we're not feeling love from a partner, it's not our job to say, okay, well, I feel this way because you're not loving me. It's our job to look at that and say, how can I feel more loved and supported? And how can I make sure that that is happening in my own sphere without projecting it onto somebody else?
I think
Um,
that's so
Go ahead.
important because we do live in a culture that kind of breeds an unhealthy level of codependency, meaning you owe me these feelings, you owe me, and I'm looking for someone who can gift me these needs to be met, and that's an unhealthy codependent way of attaching to other people
Yeah.
in order to meet our needs.
Well, and think about it. If you're always relying on somebody else to provide your needs of love or safety or belonging, you're always going to be waiting for those needs to be met.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to be waiting, and they're never going to be met to your level of expectation either, right? Because they're always going to fall short in how you need them to be met, because no one knows your needs better than you do. So if you're always waiting for someone else to come in and meet your need, they're always going to fail. You're just setting yourself up for a cycle of failed expectations from someone else and disappointment in a relationship, because I expect you to do this, but you don't know me well enough to know how to meet that for me in the way that I need it met. And now you're just constantly letting me down and disappointing me. And it creates again a negative cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So you know yourself best to know how those needs need to be met. You can ask for those things from other people, but you can't expect them to give it to you just because you ask for one. And you need to make sure that if they can't meet it in the way that you need them to, you have other ways of supporting yourself in those needs. It can't come from one source, and it can't be because of someone else. You have to find ways to support yourself in your own love. You have to support yourself in your safety. You have to have ways of supporting yourself in your sense of belonging. You have to belong to yourself if you want to feel like you belong everywhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so wise. So good.
So those are just some examples of some questions that can start to cultivate some curiosity as you're looking at your belief patterns and your cycles. So the final step in all of this is to then reframe the belief into something new that is true for you. And I want to emphasize this point of true for you, because our experiences and our own personal truth can feel so relative sometimes, right? I think there are truths that are unchanging that apply to all of us, but I think we also have our own personal truths, right? So for instance, in an example of a belief, if I'm feeling like I am not enough, to me that is my truth. It might not be the actual truth, but to me that is my truth in that moment. So if I'm trying to change that belief, I need to change it to something that feels true to me. Because if I don't believe it's true, and I'm just trying to force a new belief that doesn't feel true, am I going to stick with that belief? Is that belief going to stick?
No.
If I'm going from a place of I'm not enough, and I just try to switch that to no, you are enough, I am enough, but I don't actually believe that, that belief is not going to hold. I can't just say the opposite and expect it to stick or expect it to hold true. So I have to reframe it in a way that I actually believe. So I'm going to kind of walk you through this example. I'm going to use that example of I am not enough. And you can click through the slide here, Mom. So the example that I used was I'm not enough. So I recognize the belief. The need for me that could be lacking in that is a sense of love and belonging, right? I feel like I am not being loved by the people in my life. I feel like I don't belong in the communities or the groups that I'm in. So I've identified where I feel like there's a need lacking. I've identified what the belief is. Some questions I could potentially ask myself as I'm looking at this are, who told me this? Who told me I'm not enough? What does enough even look like? Enough for who? Who am I trying to be enough for? Why do I feel like I need to prove myself to friends or family in order to be loved and valued? Is that true? Do I need to prove myself to friends or family in order to be loved and valued? If not, what is truth? What is true? What is the actual truth there? What does God tell me is true? For me, God is a lens that I use to scope out truth in my life. If that's not a lens that you use, that's okay. You can replace that with a different lens that you use to scope out truth in your life. And as you're going through the questioning process specifically, I would highly recommend journaling these out. Because what happens is if you try to kind of just think through the thought process of it, our brains don't fully finish thoughts. They're really quick to kind of jump from one thing to the next to the next, and the thought never really gets the chance to fully form itself out. When you journal, you really get that chance to really dig in deep and let those thoughts fully form themselves out from start to finish so that you can get the full rounded picture of what's actually happening there. So I highly recommend journaling or even talking it out with somebody as you're kind of going through this, but let those thoughts fully form and complete themselves out from start to finish. So now that I've identified those questions and I've kind of gone through them, I recognize what elements of that belief feel true, what elements don't feel true for me anymore as I've journaled through those. So a reframe that I could now take from that is my worth and value is not based on what I'm able to contribute. And I deserve a community that supports me with love, regardless of what I can do or offer. Like, I believe that. I believe that I should be able to be in my communities that just accept me for who I am and has nothing to do with what I can give them or do for them. Another truth that I have is I think that God loves me for exactly who I am and as I am, and I can do that too. If He can love me that way, I can love myself that way too. So as I move forward in my patterns, if I notice these negative thoughts coming up again, I'm going to refer back to my reframe. I'm going to refer back to, no, I don't actually believe that. I believe my worth is valued based off of who I am as a person. I believe that God loves me exactly as I am. I believe that my community loves me regardless of what I have to offer them. And I can use that to then start to interrupt the cycle and break the cycle. And the more I start to tell myself that, and the more I start to accept that new truth, the less those thoughts are going to show up in my life, right? They're not going to perpetuate. I'm going to stop them. And as soon as they start to come up, they no longer align with what I believe to be true. And I'm going to start to have new thoughts that start to create a new experience. I'm going to show up differently in my social circles if I believe that I'm just valued because I'm there. I'm going to show up differently in those experiences. And that's going to create a new experience for me. So that is just kind of the basic 3-step process for kind of doing some reframes. If there's anyone out there that is willing or would like to walk through this process based off of, I don't know, one of the thoughts that you might have had written down at the beginning when we went through this, I'm more than happy to kind of do a demonstration or a walkthrough of this. If not, that's also okay. I do have a worksheet like my mom said.
Yeah. Is there anybody who wants to just jump on and do this in real time? I'm going to stop screen share for just a sec. We'll come back to it if we need to.
Oh, yeah.
Who said yes?
Karen.
Oh, Karen, yes. Yeah, let me pin you to the screen so you can talk to Jessica. All right, go ahead, Jessica.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hey, good. And when you said, um, just before you said filling yourself with food, I had wrote down snacking. So I'm like,
It's a common one.
yeah, pretty common, I guess. But yeah, it's been a
Okay.
struggle lately.
Okay. So
Oh,
for you, snacking feels like it's a pattern that you feel like you're stuck in this loop.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Before we jump too far into it, Karen, I just want to preface that you're more than welcome to share as much or as little as you want. I'm going to be asking some questions for some introspection. If you want to verbally share, you're more than welcome to if you feel comfortable. If you'd rather do a little bit of internal introspection as I ask you these questions, that's fine as well. I think it's beneficial for the group if we get to hear some of your thought process, but don't feel like you have to, okay?
I would be willing to share.
Okay. Well, perfect. So let's start there. So we've identified the loop that you're stuck in, which is the snacking aspect of it. Um, have you identified, well, hold on, let me go back. So I want to ask the question, how does that affect your sense of emotional stability or safety as you're stuck in this pattern?
Well, uh, doesn't make you feel, I feel lack of accomplishment when I do that because I
Hmm.
had goal of getting my weight to where it should be, and I was doing really good. It didn't seem
Right.
like it much effort in the beginning because I'd had a surgery back in October, major surgery, and like I didn't have the desire to eat as much, So now that
Right.
I'm healing, not there quite yet, but oh my goodness, it's like the weight's creeping back on. I'm like, I don't want this to happen. No, no, stop it.
Okay. Okay, I think that's such an interesting point. So you mentioned that the snacking is leading to more weight coming back on, weight that you have worked to take off, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So for you, the snacking, it feels like it's interfering with this work that you've put on to a healthier lifestyle, right?
definitely. I want to, get my health better. Um,
Right.
and eating like high carbohydrate things, and I know better than that. I'm like,
Right.
what's wrong with you? You know,
Right. Definitely. So let's start. I want to preface first by asking, is eating bad?
eating in general is not bad, but
Right. Eating in general is not bad, right? Um, the next question I want to ask is when you get in these snacking moods, are you feeling hunger? Does it feel like are we just eating because we're hungry, or are we eating because we're bored, or is it like an emotional? What do you think is there for you in that?
when I'm at work because they frustrate me, and I'm like, that's how I take out my frustrations. And if I'm
Oh, okay.
not supposed to eat their food because it's clients, but sometimes I do.
Yeah.
And I go in the store and buy and replacing what I got in cookies. For heaven's sake, that's always been a downfall for me, and that is not healthy.
So,
No,
Karen, you just identified the feeling that's perpetuating the cycle. So, you just said you're working with clients and you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you turn to the cookies or you turn to the sweet, right?
definitely.
So, frustration is definitely a feeling that's starting to fuel that desire to turn to food or snacking. Are there any other feelings that you recognize when you get in these cycles of I need a snack, I want to snack on something sweet or whatever it is that you snack on? Are there other feelings there that you can identify?
Yeah, like when I just think I want out of here. This is not where I want to be. I want better for this and me. I want better for this kind of job. I'm not thrilled about this job at all, but it's like
Okay.
grateful that I have it right now because there's not a lot of things I can physically do. And I can physically go to the house and help these individuals who are taking care of people who are mentally challenged.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe a sense of feeling unfulfilled where you're
Uh,
at.
oh yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
what I felt. You know?
Yeah. Okay, so we have a sense of feeling unfulfilled, and that's the thought, right? I feel unfulfilled where I'm at, and that's leading to feelings of frustration, which are leading to a behavior or a habit of filling yourself with something else that does feel good, right? I'm not
And
feeling fulfilled where I'm at, so I'm gonna fulfill myself with something that feels good somewhere else that I do have control over, right? So let's change that. Let's take that back step further. The thought is, I'm not fulfilled here. Let's take it back to maybe the belief portion of that. Why are you not fulfilled in your job?
it's not my passion.
It's not your passion. So what is your passion?
Working with natural healing and the herbs and essential oils and that type of thing. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so your passion is about outreach. It's about connecting with people in maybe a more meaningful way,
Right. Right.
about doing something that feels like there's a higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel, is there any chance in your current present situation, is there any opportunity to feel like you are contributing in that way in your
Some,
current job?
sometimes sometimes there has been times when
Mhm.
someone one of them might have felt the need to express his feelings. There's three young men, and how he was mistreated as a child, and sometimes it does give me an opportunity to help them know that they are worthy. They
Right.
are.
Right. So you find opportunities to try to fulfill where you can in your present role, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's look at your emotional needs, the needs that feel like they aren't being met in your present experience, the needs of love, safety, or belonging. If you could identify which one feels like is lacking from your current experience, what would you identify?
um I think love.
You think love? Why would you say love?
Well, sometimes being single is very hard, but I'm not living in anxiety, extreme anxiety because I'm not married.
Mhm.
I have been married, and I think, sometimes being single is not the worst thing that can happen to you. You know, so
True. Yeah.
it sometimes can be lonely, and sometimes you can feel a lack there. It's not exactly what you desire, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
Would you say that that need for love and connection, does that influence your desire to have a job or a career that's full of fulfillment in that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we've kind of identified a belief, right? This belief that I'm not in the job that's fulfilling to me. I'm not doing what I want to be doing. I'm not doing something that's fulfilling my passions and desires. We've kind of identified a need that might not be being met, this need of feeling loved or contributing love. It can go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's kind of get a little bit more curious with those. Let's take you through some of these questions. So let's start with um, considering all the evidence, is this thought of I'm not fulfilled or I can't I can't contribute in a meaningful way, is that 100% accurate? I can't contribute in a meaningful way where I'm at. Let's start there.
Well, not 100% accurate, because there are times
Okay.
when, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we've identified that that's not 100% accurate. Okay. Does thinking this way, does it help me or does it hurt me?
It kind of hurts. I mean,
It does hurt, doesn't it? Yeah. And it's obviously hurting your physical well-being as much as it is your mental well-being, right? Because it's affecting habits, good habits that you were putting in place, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe let's look at what's the positive intention of the thought that I'm having. So the thought that you're having, or the belief that's being held, is I'm not where I want to be, or I'm not where that I can be serving in the capacity I want to be serving. What's the positive intention there? What is it keeping you safe from? If you're not where you're supposed to be, why aren't you there? What is it keeping you safe from?
Oh boy.
Or what would I rather be experiencing instead?
I think maybe you just hit on it, the fear of, yeah, I want something more, but I'm kind of scared to go out there.
Why?
Then you come to, I don't think I don't, other people can do it, but I can't do it. That I'm not enough, that type of thing. It goes right back to that. Yeah. It's like, I'm afraid to approach people. I'm afraid to, but I have no fear in talking to people. So that I don't know what that holds me back, because I can be in a grocery store and get somebody's life story without even trying. It's weird. I mean, it's just a gift.
So why are other people enough, but you aren't enough to do the work that you want to be doing?
I guess it goes right back to the childhood thing of feeling that way as a child, um, feeling inferior as a child.
Yeah, feeling inferior. So let's ask that. Is that thought 100% accurate?
I know it's not, but I know that's where I got put back in first grade and in fourth grade. And I always thought, well, you are mentally challenged. Only I didn't use that word. And then later, and when I was 30, they found out I was dyslexic. And then I thought, oh, it has a name. Being a dingbat, it has a name.
Yeah.
It's not nice, but that's what I said. So yeah, all those inferior feelings date back to when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay. So you've identified the experience that might have perpetuated this belief that I'm not enough. Um, we've identified that it was hurting you, right? Does that thought of I'm not enough, that's a hurtful thought. It's holding you back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that belief serve you?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it really doesn't. It does not serve.
Yeah.
So
if it's not serving you, can we maybe change it?
Well, that'd be nice.
What do you know about yourself and others that tells you that that belief is not true? How do you know that that belief isn't true?
I know, like I said before, I never meet a stranger. People start talking to me, or I'll start talking to them. And it's like I know that I have a way of communicating and expressing with people that I don't meet strangers. So
Right.
I think that I should know that subconsciously. I know it consciously, but subconsciously I have struggled with that. Yeah.
Right. So the physical evidence is there, right? The
Yeah.
physical evidence is showing you that you are enough to do this. You can go back to the experiences that perpetuated the belief and call that out and say, no, I wasn't right. That wasn't true when I was thinking that about myself. That wasn't actually true. So what is true?
So it is true. I can
What is true for you? What is the truth?
Truth is I can be successful. And for some reason that kind of sticks in my mouth when I say it. It's like,
Right.
really?
So you want it to be true, but maybe we're not quite there yet to the I am. let's start with the belief of I'm not enough or I feel inferior. That's not true, right? I'm not enough or I am inferior. That's not true.
Right.
Okay. So if that's not true, what is true?
What is true that I am here now for a purpose. And that's
Yeah.
it. I feel like this job is not my purpose, but it's helping, it's helped me financially while
Right. So
in the
I am here for a purpose. When you say that, does that feel like it gets stuck in the mouth?
mm-mm.
No, that one feels free to say. Then
Right.
that's the belief that I would hold on to. That's the belief that's going to help motivate the change in the thought process and in the patterns and behaviors, because that's the belief that you resonate with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's hang on to that one. So it was say it to me one more time. What was the new belief?
I'm here for a purpose. Is that what you want me to say?
Yes, yeah, I am here for a purpose. Okay. And what is that purpose?
Oh my goodness. um, I know I've always desired to be able to help people and
Okay.
to learn how to heal their bodies without going to the medications that so many of us do and that we're taught that we have to do. This is the only way, that type of thing.
Right. Okay.
And,
So I'm here for a purpose, and that
oh,
purpose is to help people, right?
right.
In some meaningful capacity. For you, that could be in a healing capacity.
Yeah. And well, I'm in one specific business, which I just have not been able to get off the ground. Other
Right.
people, and I see this all the time, and I'm thinking, if you can do it, I should be able to do it. I mean, I'm not talking about all these people are geniuses. I mean,
Yeah. Let's take the business side of it out of the equation for just a second. Let's take the business out of it for just a second. So I'm here for a purpose, and that purpose is to help people in some sort of capacity. That could be healing, or that could be some other capacity. I want you to ask yourself, am I enough in that capacity? Do I have exactly what I need to step into that role?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you believe that, right? I believe that I have the capacity to be enough in this role.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I fully believe, Karen, that you do have the capacity to step into that role and to have a successful business the way that you want to. But maybe the pressure of the business is stopping you from moving forward. Maybe we take the pressure of the business aspect of it off the table for just a second. I'm not saying you can't have a successful business, but take the pressure of making it a business off the table for just a second. And maybe it's just a question of looking for opportunities to step into that role whenever and wherever you're at. And as you do that and you start to become comfortable in that role of just being the healer wherever I'm at, the business side of it will naturally fall into place as you let that role naturally fall into place in your own life.
That makes sense.
Does
I like,
that make sense for you? Does that resonate?
yes, very much so. Just like as you're talking to people and they're telling you concerns, and you can, yeah, you don't have to constantly think about business, but put the people first.
Yeah, find ways to fulfill that role wherever you are in your life, in any moment or circumstance that you're in your life. And naturally, the business side of it will fall into place as you step into that role and as you accept that role wherever you're at.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. I feel
Of
like I'm
course.
monopolizing the time here, but I appreciate it so much. I was like,
Of
yeah,
course.
I'm gonna miss it, you know.
No, that was great. How are we feeling now as we're thinking kind of about the initial thoughts, where we were at? Does it feel complete where we got to with that reframe?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate you being here and letting us pick your brain, and for you sharing some vulnerability in that. I hope that was beneficial to the people watching and listening as well.
I hope so too. I hope I just didn't take up everybody's time without. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Of
you weren't
course.
taking up anybody's time. That was perfect. To be able to see you, Jessica, walk somebody through that process, I think that's really helpful in our learning of how we can do this for each other, how we can hold space for one another as friends and peers and facilitators and practitioners alike.
Right. Of course.
So we have a couple comments here, and then is there still any aspect of the presentation we need to go back to the screen share, or are we good?
We're good. I have a few last minute points I just wanted to make, but
Okay,
we're good.
let's go through. Mike had suggested when you were working with Karen, he said, I would challenge you to say you are successful. He says he has to hop off to another meeting, but can't wait to listen to the replay. Thanks for being here, Mike. I'm glad that you were here. Ellie said, Karen, you didn't monopolize. You were sharing yourself to be a lesson for all of us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Lisa said, Karen, that helped me with my belief. So she says, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. That was really helpful. So Jessica, I'm going to turn it to you for the last word and to just kind of wrap things up however you feel you need
Okay.
to.
Yeah, of course. So I just wanted to leave the last couple key points. As you go through this process, there's just a few things I want you to keep in mind as you go through this cycle of reframing your thoughts and beliefs. First one is that building emotional resilience, it takes time, it takes practice, and it takes patience with ourselves. So it's okay if you don't notice changes right away. It's gonna take a process. As you start to change the way you think, you will start to notice it. You'll start to be able to call out the lies a lot sooner. You'll start to call out the beliefs that aren't true a lot quicker, but you have to practice recognizing what they are first in order to do that. The next point that I just want to leave you with is that love is a very powerful source for positive change in our lives. When we have healthy love and relationship to ourselves and to other people, it becomes a lot easier to recognize the mistruths. It becomes a lot easier when we recognize that belief of I'm not enough, to call it out and tell myself, actually, I am. I have enough love for myself to recognize that I am enough, and that's not true, and I can change the thoughts from there. So when we approach change from a place of love, it's going to have such a longer lasting impact and effect for positive change than anything else. One other point I would make too, just again, coming back to the journaling and the talk therapy, I highly recommend that using that as a tool when you are analyzing beliefs and thought patterns. It really gives abstract thoughts a tangible structure when you're able to either write it down or verbalize it so that it is a fully formed, complete thought. For me, especially if I write something down, it brings it into the three-dimensional, and I can look at it and physically see it and go, wait, that's not true, right? I can see that on the paper and I'm reading it, and that's not true. So writing it out is very powerful in bringing something abstract into a physical presence and form. And we need that sometimes in order to recognize that it doesn't resonate.
Jessica, can I just interject one thing before you go to your last point? What I love about that is I'm a very visual person too, and I loved that you gave us that feedback loop or that the belief cycle so that we can see where am I on this actual belief cycle? Am I in the middle of the experience that is creating the belief? Am I over here in the habits that were formed because of these beliefs and thoughts and feelings? Where am I in it?
Right.
And so I love that we can have a visual experience with that, a tangible experience with it, so that we can come back to a sense of what is actually true and what is actually reality, and reshape our thinking and our believing based on what is actual.
Right. Because, I mean, feelings are not truth. Feelings are not truth at all, but they can feel like truth if we don't do anything to uncheck them, because they, again, create our realities if they go unchecked.
Yeah.
So when you can bring it into a physical form and presence into your life, I think it makes it a lot easier to recognize the inaccuracy that's there and change the pattern.
Yeah. In quantum healing, they talk about the four main disconnects: a disconnect from truth, a disconnect from God, a disconnect from yourself, your true self, and a disconnect from other people. And those four things come with biological consequences and can make you very sick.
Yes. Yeah. They definitely all have an effect. They're so interchangeable. Our physical plane and our emotional mental plane, it's so interchangeable the way that they affect one another. So if we have to kind of get into both of them, if we want to create lasting change, you kind of have to get into the physical side of it as well as the emotional, mental, physical side as well. So,
yeah.
Final point I just wanted to leave you guys with is that ultimately you get to choose what you believe. And that is such a beautiful gift that we have in this life, that we get to choose the things that we believe, because beliefs are so powerful. But with that comes the responsibility of taking ownership of our beliefs, taking ownership of our lives, and taking ownership of our experiences, right?
Yeah.
It can be easy to sit back and stay victim to the experience that we're having. But there's so much power in taking control of our experience. And there's so much power in taking control of what I believe. I am in charge of what I believe. I am in charge of what I think. I am in charge of how I feel and what I experience. And when I take that power back, your life will change.
Yeah.
Your experiences will change. You start to see yourself in a new way. You start to see other people in a new way. You have a new level of confidence in the way you're able to approach life in general. And it's really beautiful when you take that power back into your life and choose to create your experiences.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. Thank you so much. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You have helped me in many ways with a lot of this wisdom that you have shared with me. And so where can people go? Where do you want people to go to connect with you, to follow you maybe on social media? Or I know that you have a lot of really amazing posts on social media where you share this wisdom. So
I'm on Instagram. On the last slide of the presentation, I did put my handle, but I'm on Instagram under Life and Health Transformation, LifeandHealth Transformation. And then you can also email me. I put my email on that slideshow. If you want to put it on there, we can also put it in the chat too, so that people can have it. My email is, go ahead and put that up. My email, though, is jessicathurgoodcoaching@gmail.com. If you're interested in some more one-on-one coaching with me, you can either reach out to me via that email. You can message me on Instagram. You can get a hold of Janet, and she can forward you over to me as well. And we can do some consultation call, or talk about some more in-depth one-on-one coaching if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, those are some places that you guys can find me and reach out.
Also, we hadn't talked about this earlier, but you had at one point put together a really amazing journal with journal prompts. Do you still have that available?
I do. I have a couple of journal options available. I'm a big advocate for journaling. So I do have a 30-day journal that just helps you get to know yourself a little bit better. I also have a 2-week journal challenge that helps you identify identity and belief changes as well. So I've got a couple different journaling options if you're interested in getting a little deeper into that.
So maybe just private message you on Instagram or something like that, and you can get access to the journals. And if you would like private mentoring, Jessica does that as well. So, Okay, well, I think we covered all the bases. This was really great. Thank you for helping us to get to the root of
Oh, of
some of
course.
our subconscious beliefs. And I'm sure we'll have you come back at some point and talk about
I'd
other
love
things.
to.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. If you got benefit
you.
from this, please share the replay. Please invite people to come to, we do these every week. So invite people to come and participate with us live here. That would be great. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Mwah. Bye.
Bye. For you.
I didn't realize my audio was all the way up. And so when you spoke, I was like, ah!
I'm sorry.
Anybody have anything cool or exciting that they feel they want to share, or any wins for the week, or anything awesome happening in your life or in your neck of the woods?
I can tell you, Janet, I had a session with Casey Marriott.
Yeah.
And my human design chart and my husband's human design chart combined, like our relationship reading type thing. And it was fascinating.
Amazing.
Very fascinating. Offered a lot of insights to help be aware to better navigate life together. So.
Yeah. Human design, man, we've had so much fun in our household playing around with the different human design charts and seeing where we synergistically fit together, where we complement each other, or where we complete gates and channels with one another in relationship. And it's a witness and testimony to me that no man is supposed to be an island, and that we do need interconnectedness. We need to be sovereign for sure, but we also need to be interconnected.